Tens of thousands of people have for a 20th consecutive week thronged the streets of Tel Aviv to voice anger over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's controversial plans to tighten controls on the Supreme Court. Protesters chanted Israel is almost a dictatorship as they blocked the central highway in Tel Aviv. Israeli media said some 100,000 people took part in the protest, despite Netanyahu putting a pause on the legislation. The so-called reforms will give the hard-right cabinet greater control over the judiciary. Critics say it'll remove vital checks and balances and hand unchecked power to the cabinet. Joining us now from Lethbridge is Professor Anthony Hall, Professor of Globalization at Lethbridge University. Hello, Professor. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Good to see you again. Your thoughts, the people are against it. A lot of Tel Aviv's allies are against it. Why can't this thing get scrapped altogether? What's the insistence of Netanyahu's regime to hold on to this thing?
Both with Benjamin Netanyahu and without him in a position of power. And the Likud party, which used to mark the kind of right wing of Israeli politics, is now more moderate compared to Netanyahu's new colleagues in cabinet, especially Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, who are invoking memories of Meir Kahane, a very extreme radical. He was for a time parliamentarian in Israel, but then his party was blocked and banned, and he founded the Jewish Defense League in the United States. So it seems that this radical new aspect of the Israeli government, or far more radical than we've seen. It's been very radical in the past, but it wants sort of unfettered access to basically uproot Palestinians, to advance these settlements, the illegal settlements on the West Bank, and so this idea that the courts have the power to stop the extremist actions, such as we've been seeing, for instance, at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The idea that the court will intervene, the Netanyahu government wants to stop the court from intervening. Of course, Netanyahu has his own issues with the court, who keep trying to charge him with things. He's charged with small things when you look at the level of the international laws being broken with respect to the treatment of Palestinians, the torture, the elimination, basically the ethnic cleansing that the Gvir Smotrich faction seem to want to create, and they have a lot of sympathy with the electorate in Israel, which sort of treated them as rock stars. But now that they get them in the government, it seems that there is a large faction of people who want the protection of courts. They don't want to hand it all over to the government. So Netanyahu, for his own reasons, and his colleagues in the religious Zionist faction are creating a situation that the citizens of Israel mobilize. They mobilize in the military, in the defense. There's a great split opening up deep within the structure of Israel, the security structures, and it poses a major national security threat for the viability of Israel, I would say.
Right, and when you have someone like Bezalel Smotrich saying there is no thing as such as a Palestinian culture or Palestinian identity, when you have Itamar Ben-Gvir, both men you alluded to, walking with protesters just a few days ago on the so-called flag march, yelling out death to Arabs, dirty Arabs, Arabs go back to your villages, when they're hand in hand with this kind of ideology, and then you mentioned Benjamin Netanyahu, in order to get this coalition, gave these guys a bunch of concessions. Does that raise, what kind of concerns does that raise for you when you have this kind of perspective running the regime there?
Well, as I say, Meir Kahane, his memory is, he was assassinated in 1990, but he said, for instance, that you might as well try to live with cancer as to coexist with Palestinians. He instigated a mass killing by Goldstein of 29 Palestinians. This heritage of Israel, that it seemed Israel was somewhat trying to keep to the margins by disqualifying Kahani's party. It seems that the sort of anti-democratic character of Israel is becoming so close to the surface, and the lust for power, it's a kind of Jewish supremacy, Jewish racism that cannot be disguised easily. This is apparent, but it seems that the electorate sort of want their cake and eat it too. They want these extremists in power, but they want some kind of check from the court system, from the judiciary.
Good stuff, Professor. Always a pleasure to check in with you. Stay safe, and thank you for joining us on the program from Lethbridge. Professor Anthony Hall there joining us.